Thank you, Owen. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Traffic Safety Committee. I just have a few notes to read really quick. This open meeting of the Traffic Safety Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on March 29th, 2023. All members of the Traffic Safety Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The Act allows the Traffic Safety Committee to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed in the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Rachel Armstrong.
Here.
Kate Gerard.
Here.
Brian Cole.
Here.
Chris DeSantis.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. DPW Chief Scott Charpentier.
Present.
Police Chief Bill Liver.
Present.
We'll go into the public comment section afterwards. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the November 15th minutes. Did everyone have a chance to look those minutes over?
Yes.
Any questions, any amendments that anyone would like to make or any changes? Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous Traffic and Safety Committee.
Second.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Roll call vote. Rachel?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that passes unanimously. So now we have the citizen inquiries that either we were talking previously. I guess we'll go through the continued discussions first. I had one question, Scott, really quick, before we go ahead on this. So heavy commercial vehicle exclusions, I know we've got a few of these on here. I've noticed that, in the previous meetings we were talking about 2.5 ton, but I noticed the one on Whitney Street is 5 ton. Are there different requirements for each, or are they just the same thing and it's just what the town decides on each area?
The lower Whitney Street truck exclusion of 5 tons is identified in the town bylaw. And that was enacted, I believe, before the standard 2.5 ton that DOT authorizes now. On Upper Whitney Street or by Coolidge, there's a 6 ton limit, and that's specific to the structural integrity of the bridge that goes over the CSX railroad.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
We can note in the minutes that Megan has joined us. Welcome, Megan. Nope, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. So I guess we'll go through these one at a time. So the Summer Street heavy commercial vehicle exclusion, is there any update on that, Scott?
No, we discussed this at our last meeting, as we're all aware. The turning radii does fit for a tractor trailer, WB53, taking a right-hand turn from South Street heading eastbound on Route 20 without impeding on the westbound traffic on Route 20. So that it does fit without popping the curb. So there are no geometric restrictions to the truck exclusion. Meets all the criteria. The report's been distributed. The process, the next step would be for this committee to vote and recommend that the select board consider supporting a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion. They do that. We then submit the documentation to Mass DOT for consideration. Mass DOT reviews it, determines that it is or is not in conformance with their regulations. They send us a letter back. We then go before the select board again, and then they enact the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion, and signs can be erected, and then Chief Liver can start his enforcement.
Okay. The agenda says Summer Street, not South Street.
Oh, I'm sorry. Summer Street. Yes, I'm sorry. Summer Street.
Okay.
That's the full length from south to Maine, 135 to 20.
Okay.
So that turn is doable with
By
the
the
tractor
skin of your
trailer.
teeth, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how it always goes. But
Yep. Auto turn makes
all-
it just about right.
yeah, that's all they need.
Yep.
Yeah. And but that's if they take over that left lane, correct?
That's correct. They have to take over the center lane. So the traffic configure the left lane. So there's two left turn lanes. The tractor trailer would have to go over and take left turn lane in order to make the turn. And it's tight. I would not be surprised to see a tractor trailer trying to make that turn and correct if I'm wrong, Chief, fail in that there's a car queued on Main Street looking to take a left onto South Street. If there's a car queued there and that tractor trailer driver isn't spot on in his movement, he's going to get stuck there until that car moves, and that car's not moving until the light changes. So while the math says it's viable, the reality may be pretty bad repercussions when it comes to traffic queuing there when a tractor trailer is jammed up for a few light cycles.
So, and what would be the option if the exclusion were passed?
Well, if the exclusion is enacted, that's the direction the trucks will go. In order for a truck on Route 135 South Street going north, if they want to go east on 20, they have to go to the light. They have to take a right. No right turn on red, so they have to wait till it's green. They'll have to take both lanes. If he's a competent driver, he'll see that he has to take both turn lanes in order to negotiate that turn. If he doesn't, he'll probably sit there until the adjacent lane queue clears, and then hopefully swing around enough to not be facing the vehicle on Main Street taking a left onto South. But
Oh, I see. So that's where I was confused. So what we're saying is they're not allowed to take Summer Street, so that would force them onto South Street.
Yes, I would force them to take that right turn from south, and that's the first meeting we had. And even before this, when I spoke to the resident who requested this and the consultant, I said, make sure you take a look at this particularly closely, because that is a really tough move.
Right.
One of the other issues to consider, Mr. Chair, would be the tractor trailer unit taking the left lane, and
Right.
And the motorist is not paying attention, passing them on the right to take the same right, and if that'll jam them up. That truck won't be able to turn either. But
Yeah. Or even just somebody in that, on Route 20 who just goes over that line just by a little bit, right? Making that left-hand turn onto South Street is going to block that truck, and then neither one of them are going anywhere.
Once that queue at that left turn onto South from Main backs up, it's a very short queuing aisle, so that can get back into the through movement on Main Street heading westbound. So as we all know, it doesn't take a lot to cause a lot of havoc when it comes to a relatively complicated and tight configured intersection like this.
Right.
One thing too, Scott, I was just looking at both of these being arterials. Technically, by design standards, they're not supposed to overtrack in any lane. It's
Right.
supposed to stay in its own lane and make its turn into its own lane. So, just something to consider when it to keep in mind for all of us when this does go to DOT. That does run the chance of getting flagged.
Right. Being in a left-hand only lane, making a right-hand turn.
Yeah.
What do other
So what
members
Chris
think?
is referring to is there's different roadway classifications, local, collector, arterial. Those are in order from low to high priorities, and Chris is correct in the the movements.
Okay.
Can
Go
I
ahead,
ask,
Brian.
can I ask a simplistic question? If it does get flagged, what is the town gonna do about that? Like, that's not. That intersection is tight, no matter whether we do this exclusion or not. We can
Well,
pick up that building.
Yeah, the exclusion though is, and this is where I was confused too. So the exclusion is actually Summer Street. So if you're coming up 135,
Yeah,
you have
right,
the option of making that right-hand turn
right.
onto Summer Street and then following Summer Street down. What the
Right, so
what the
what we're-
request is to not allow trucks to do that, therefore forcing them to go on to
Forcing them to make
135 and
that happen.
20. Right.
Right. If it gets flagged, that means we're not getting the exclusion.
Correct.
Okay, that's the only, okay. It's still gonna be crappy for whatever poor unfortunate tractor trailer finds himself at that intersection.
And everybody around them.
Right.
Well, yes, also the other people, but the hope is that they would not go that way if
Right.
DOT flags it.
So
Thank
go ahead, Rachel.
So I have a couple of questions. It looks like from the back of the report, most of the trucks were less than 5 axles. Is that right, Scott?
I'd have to look at the data, but if that's what it says, I believe you're accurate.
So I
my-
guess is the turning radius different for a truck that's less than 5 axles versus like a major tractor trailer?
A WB-30 is a pretty long, pretty wide turning radius. That's like a really big box truck. You know, when I do my turning templates, I generally do a WB-30 and then the WB-53s. The 30 is a non-articulated. It's just a gigantic U-Haul basically. Where a tractor trailers, obviously, we know what we're talking about there. Those turning radii are not far off from each other, believe it or not. You're more likely to have a less experienced driver in a WB-30 than you are in a tractor trailer. Or at least that used to be the case. I've seen tractor trailers do some very questionable things lately, so turning around where they shouldn't. But no, I would suspect that a WB-30 would have a very similar difficulty in negotiating that turn, as would you know, long dual axle landscape trailer, you know, 20-foot landscape, 22-foot landscape trailer with a, you know, long pickup truck. They would have a difficult time negotiating that turn as well.
Okay. My other, it's not a question, it's just sort of rhetorical. We're getting obviously a lot of truck exclusion requests. We're looking at Lincoln Street for the future, and then there's another one on here. My concern is that, and I don't think, you know me, I don't believe that tractor trailer trucks belong on residential roads. My concern is that if we don't have a comprehensive strategy for these truck exclusions, then to Kate's point at the last meeting, we're going to have an even more congested downtown, that 135 and Route 20 and Church Street and Bartlett Street and you know, that all these other streets are going to become even more inundated as we start potentially approving these sort of in a vacuum. So that's my only concern. I don't think Summer Street is appropriate for trucks, but you know, they keep coming up, and that's my concern, is what's going to be the impact on other roads in town. That's it.
Yep. Any other members? How does everyone feel about this one? I'm sort of, I mean, Rachel, I'm with you, right? I always have been that, you know, I think residential roads aren't somewhere where trucks should be. But, you know, in this case, I'm not sure that the alternative is better. In fact, I think it might be worse.
No,
Right.
I agree. I don't think trucks belong on Summer Street. But yeah, I mean, that at some point, I feel like there's a larger discussion we need to have.
Right.
Oh, and then Scott, I did have another question. And and maybe Bill, this comes later in the discussion, but as we're looking at traffic studies, I know the CMRPC allows a certain amount per year. And as we continue to get requests, how many do they allow and how long are they valid?
They'll generally give us 2 a year. We try to request
Okay.
them early. So, for stuff for the holidays, I'll email in for something, late spring. And then after I get those counts, we'll say, hey, by the way, if something opens up in the fall, can you give me counts here? They just put out some counts for us last minute over at the fire station. For the new fire station location over by Dunkin' Donuts. You may have seen the tubes when you're driving by.
Right. Does that
Um,
count towards our 2 a year?
Yeah, yeah, but they'll,
Okay.
they're pretty accommodating. If they're not being used, I mean, those were right at the end of the year. We happen to have a week of warm weather, so they were able to put them out. They normally would not. All you need is, a slushy sleet, and all of a sudden they're ripped out of the ground and ruined, and then I
Right.
own them.
Scott, what do we do with the ones that we get through the planning board? So, there are traffic studies that are done for like a construction project, right? And so it's done by the third party, by the company. Do we keep those as well?
I don't get copies of those. Um, I would if it shows that there is a substantive increase in traffic, which may trigger a warrant for a turning lane or a traffic light or something to that effect. So, for example, the East Main Street, Bartlett Street corner, the old barbecue, the Texas
Mm-hmm.
barbecue. I wasn't provided any of the traffic data on that. There were no measurable impacts to East Main Street in the report. And then Mass DOT runs Route 20. So very rarely do I see those unless there is a substantial level of service increase.
I'm wondering if we should start keeping all of those and keeping track of them, right, in one centralized location. That way, if we want to review anything, because I know I do remember, I want to say it was just over a year ago, it was just after I started on the planning board, that there was one about Barefoot, and right at that corner at the top of the hill by Iron Mountain. There was the Rico company, the owners of that building were doing a project, and so they had done a study, and we had some questions about coming around that corner, because what they stated was the original, the speed limit is 35, but people generally do around 40 coming around that corner, and at 40, there wasn't enough sight distance to be able for a truck to be able to pull out, but at 35 there is. So it came up as a question in the planning board, and they actually went back and revised the traffic study. But I'm thinking, hanging on to that type of information in one location. That way, if something comes up about Barefoot, we don't have to go back and do another traffic study if there's one that was done within the last couple of years.
We can do that.
How long are they?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead, Rachel.
How long are the traffic studies valid?
There isn't any defined period. It depends on the development in the area. I mean, if it's a few years later, they're generally okay. For example, if we had a traffic study at 200 Bartlett 7 years ago, and then 3 years later Amazon gets built, that's not valid anymore. No Amazon 5 years later, it's probably about the same. There's a bit of reasonableness associated with that. Certainly nothing is good after 10 years. That's way too long. But generally, 3 to 5 years is probably viable as long as there's no major land use changes. But we can create an engineering folder and compile specifically the traffic studies that come to the planning board, as well as the counts that we get through this committee, as well as prior requests, and we just put them in the street folder. And if we need them, great. If we don't, whatever. They're just eating up a little bit of data. Doesn't harm anybody.
Right. Brian, you'd thrown your hand up there. You good? Okay.
I was just gonna. Always the way. I was just gonna ask the same question that Rachel asked.
Okay. So I think at this point, does everyone feel comfortable making or does anyone feel comfortable making a motion to not recommend the heavy commercial vehicle exclusion for Summer Street?
I will.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Okay, all in favor? I'll go who's on my screen here. Rachel?
So, wait, this is in favor for a truck exclusion, correct?
No, this is
No.
for no truck exclusion on Summer Street.
Oh, no.
Okay. Kate?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so it's 4-1.
I probably misunderstood the question, so I'll be a yes.
So we will not be recommending a truck exclusion.
That we will not be recommending a truck exclusion for Summer Street.
Okay.
Correct. Okay, so the next one, and Rachel, by the way, if you vote no, it's fine. You don't have to go along with the rest of us, right?
No, I get that. No, I'm concerned. I'm totally fine with that.
Yep.
Thank you, though.
So the next one is Rice Ave between Whitney Street and Allen Street. And I think, Scott, I'll let you talk to this one as well.
Sure. So, we discussed this. The report's been distributed. Everybody's had a chance to look through it. We had some counts done on Rice Ave between Whitney and Allen. It met the criteria for percentages for a truck exclusion. We had the engineering report prepared because of a lot of other restrictions in the area. For example, there's a truck exclusion on Whitney Street. There's a height restriction on Allen Street. Winter Street enters a four-way intersection where left and right are both truck excluded. And if we were to have an exclusion on Rice Ave across the intersection, then Winter Street should be excluded as well, because any truck on Winter Street would be stuck at a four-way intersection with nowhere to turn. The little section of Allen Street between Hudson and Rice is recommended for an exclusion as well. As trucks are coming down Hudson Street, from Solomon Pond side, they can't go into Hudson Street, the aqueduct. They can't take a right because they'll be stuck on Rice, and that'll loop them around either back onto Hudson or up to Whitney Street where there's a truck exclusion. So they should be turning right onto Allen. When there's a truck exclusion on the second half of Rice Ave between Allen and Colburn, that renders Colburn a likely truck exclusion because trucks have nowhere to go there either. So there's recommendations in the report indicating more than just Rice Ave. It's Rice, the short section of Allen between Hudson and Rice, and Winter Street. There's a possibility of including Colburn as well, or having an advance warning sign on Colburn, indicating there's a truck exclusion forthcoming.
So basically, I mean, if a truck is coming up
Let me
from
share my screen. Would that help?
Sure.
Yeah.
See if I know how to do this here. Let me. Boom. I'll share my screen. I think that's it. Share. And all right. So the section we're talking about is here. We have counts that meet the threshold. We have counts in here that also meet the threshold. We had two sets of counts on Rice, here and here. They both meet the threshold for truck exclusion when it comes to the percentages. There's a current truck exclusion on the yellow road here. So if we exclude Rice, and a truck's coming up Winter, it's got nowhere to go. Can't take a left, can't take a right, can't go straight. And nobody wants to back a tractor trailer back up Winter Street. Would be very unpleasant. So it's logical to include Winter Street in the exclusion as well. This little section of Allen Street, so tractor trailers coming down Hudson Street, he sees the Aqueduct Bridge, can't go under it. We can't allow him to take a right because he's going to be stuck on a truck excluded road. So this section would be a viable truck exclusion as well. The Colburn could either have an advance warning sign here saying truck exclusion Rice Ave ahead, or could also be excluded at the discretion of either the select board or this committee or both. We've had advance warning signs. For example, we have an advance warning sign here at Howard and Winter, just letting the truckers know if you go up Winter Street, you're going to run into a truck exclusion on Whitney. So it's not unheard of to have advance warning signs for truck exclusions.
Yeah, my only concern would be that at that point, on Colburn, if we put, the advance warning sign there and route the trucks that way, eventually the neighbors in that neighborhood are going to request a truck exclusion.
But the trucks also have nowhere to go.
Right.
So if I'm a trucker,
they can go back out onto Barefoot,
which is a circle.
Right. But once they get back out there, then they can, reroute.
And figure it out. Because if they go down Barefoot this way toward Whitney, they can't take a left. And if they go right, they have to go to Newton because otherwise they're running into a weight restriction on the bridge.
Right.
So
not that I will tell you that's where I live is right over there, and I see trucks go by my house every day. And I've got a truck exclusion on one side and a weight limit on the other side. So I know that they ignore at least the weight limit. But at least they have the option at that point to go back out to Barefoot, right? And then they can take 290 over to Church Street.
Yep.
And come down Church Street, right?
Right.
My concern would be is that, that's a pretty narrow, Colburn is a pretty narrow road there as well.
Yeah.
Especially
pretty steep slopes on one side.
Right. Especially once it gets up close to Rice. So, but I guess if a truck gets down to that point, we've got to give them some type of out, right? It's either that or they go up to, is that Allen Street that crosses Route 20 there just before the aqueduct?
Yes.
And comes across, and then that would be their other out.
Yeah, the typical route is down Hudson, Allen, East Main to 20 in one direction to 20 in the other direction. Right. And that's where experienced drivers currently go.
Rachel.
You're on mute, Rachel.
I had, because as Scott knows, I'm familiar with truck exclusions, and he had given us this little chart about So when I was looking in the back, it did look like what you had said at the last meeting, that it does seem like it's mainly landscape trucks or trucks with trailers. It doesn't look like they're getting a ton of tractor trailer traffic. Is that correct?
I believe that to be the case. Yes.
Okay. I mean,
for Rice Ave as well as, for Rice Ave. Yes.
So that was, I just wanted to confirm that. And then I guess my other question is, since, we have the height limit on Allen Street, on the bridge, the Aqueduct Bridge, and then the weight limit, these don't show up on a truck's route GPS. Like does a truck driver have a separate GPS for, truck routes, and those things don't show up? I'm assuming since, the trucks are always going under that bridge or they're driving on the weight limit bridge that they don't, but is there, anyway, it's again, another rhetorical question, but I don't know why those aren't on a truck driver's GPS when they're looking at routes.
Truck exclusions generally are included on the GPS devices that or services that truck drivers apply to use. I know we've spoken with a couple trucking companies, and they do have them updated. I don't know how often they're updated, but regulatory restrictions are included in the truckers' GPS routing.
So a weight limit, would that be a regulatory restriction?
Yes.
Yep.
I don't know about overhead clearances. if I had to guess, and I guess based on my knowledge of Allen Street and Westboro, I'd say no.
Right,
I
right.
think they
Well,
just have to make sure that they like have made sure that they're including that in their in whatever their settings are. Sometimes they don't, so that's all.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll say, I used to work for a company that does a lot of local trucking, and there are companies that will provide that information. But if you're a mom and pop shop with maybe 1 or 2 trucks, you're not going to pay for that. So those are the people that are using Google Maps still, right? And that's not going to show that.
Thank you. That was it. Thank you.
And just to remind everybody on the committee, local services are exempt from the exclusion. So if Rice, Allen, Winter, and Colburn would be supported as a truck exclusion, landscapers and oil delivery trucks and furniture trucks can go on those roads as long as they have business along those routes. It's to prevent the cut-throughs.
Any other members? Ryan?
Yeah, sorry, Appendix C at the very end, all the pictures of the pencil on the road there. That's to demonstrate the wear and tear on Winter Street.
I'm not sure I know what you're referring to, Brian.
Hang on,
Is
let
it
me pull it.
is it another
It
page
is.
of this?
Yeah, it is the last, what is that? Page looks like 18 onward.
It's all the distresses, the
All the way at the bottom.
cracking.
Yeah,
Oh, pavement distresses?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was just very artistic at first. I went to the back. But that is to show that the stress that the heavy commercial vehicles are putting on the road, on that specific road, right?
It shows the condition. That road surface condition may not be a result of truck weight. It may be simply deterioration, poor subsoil. There's a lot of reasons why that may have occurred.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other member comments? So what's everyone's feeling on this? I'm of the ilk that, I think we can recommend this one as presented, right? Including the Winter Street, including the Allen Street, and the advanced sign on Coburn.
Yeah, I think that's probably, I think I'm in agreement there, Bill.
What's everyone else's thoughts?
I'm just not sure if the study included all of the landscaping and other trucks that aren't included in the exemption, what's this really going to be preventing?
The intent is to prevent cut through, right? So going from, most of them shouldn't be on Whitney anyways.
Right.
But it's to prevent the cutting through, not necessarily if they're going to do business there, that's one thing. But if they're just using the road to cut across, or to get down from, Howard Street quickly over to Hudson Street.
Yeah, if you're cutting the lawn on Howard and you got a client on Rice, you don't go down Winter. Go down Howard, hit Church, come up Whitney, hit Rice, do it the way you're supposed to. You have local business there.
But
And sorry,
where you recommend, with this, the numbers qualify this for the recommendation, but we don't know how much of that is true cut through vehicles, or if this would have even qualified without, if we had kept track of what the local traffic is.
Correct. Every single truck counted could have been doing, theoretically could be doing business on Rice Ave, but they would still just be counted as trucks.
I mean, one of the other things we can do is maybe in a year we do another this is where another traffic study is done, and we see if there's a difference between the 2 years of, when it was implemented and when it's not.
Well, that to me,
Yeah. Sorry, Brian.
sorry, I was just going to say that to me is where Rachel's point from earlier comes in handy. If we only get, a couple of studies a year, make sure that we're prioritizing the other potential exemptions first.
Mm-hmm.
I would be hesitant to go through the Mass DOT process for approval of a truck exclusion, post it, and then a year later do the counts and say, oh yeah, it really wasn't worth it. We want to get rid of it. That probably doesn't lend us too positively in the eyes of District 3's traffic engineers.
Okay.
Have there been complaints of, I guess, any Amazon 18-wheelers on these roads that you've seen, or?
All I've gotten is there's all these landscape trucks and trailers and
Yeah.
contractor trucks driving down here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's different then, because I can sit here at my desk, look out the window, and tell you how many Amazon trucks cut up at Allen Street, and it won't be fun. But I guess that's a different story, because again, those are people that are doing business and need to use that. So it's kind of,
In my opinion, professionally, truck exclusions are intended for more thorough through-fare routes that are clear cut-throughs. Lincoln Street would be one of them. Everybody's GPS from 290 to get to 20 westbound goes Pleasant Lincoln. That's just, and when you look at a map, that's logical. And I mean, outside of that one sharp curve on Pleasant Street, it's not a difficult drive. I mean, tractor trailers can negotiate Lincoln Street very easily, very comfortably, albeit there's two schools on it and it's a cut through and it's not the best route, safest route for trucks. That's kind of what this was intended for, as opposed to landscapers and, just local contractors buzzing through neighborhoods.
yeah, I definitely agree there. That makes sense. I thought they were getting the Amazon trucks and the FedEx 18-wheelers that are just going warehouse to warehouse.
Yeah, I mean, coming down Rice Ave to Allen, there's a bit of a curve and a hill to negotiate there, especially if you're going to try to then make that turn onto Allen. So I don't see semis trying to do that as a quote easy way, right? And I don't see that as being any easier.
Right.
A tractor trailer that ends up in that area is likely there inadvertently.
They're
Right.
lost.
And unhappy when they got there.
And then, and if they already, didn't abide by the first exclusion, they're probably not going to abide by a second one.
That's a good point, Bill. They're already on Whitney Street. Shame on them.
Right.
Yeah, you're probably right.
They've already gone by two, right?
Yeah,
What's
right.
the third?
Third time's a charm, right?
Yep.
Most of the trucks that we've received complaints on are tractor trailers on Rice Ave have been trucks that are coming up Church Street to go onto Whitney Street, but they see the truck exclusion, so they bypass Whitney Street. The GPS redirects them to take a turn onto Howard Street and then to turn onto Winter Street. And then when they get to Whitney, excuse me, it's like railroad tracks. That they can't go left or right. The only option they have, and it's a very difficult turn to make, is to go straight. So we get some stray reports and complaints of tractor trailers on Rice Ave where the only option they had was to go that way. So
Right.
Yeah.
But if we block Winter Street, their option is to go Howard to what, Green?
Green? That's not.
and back to Brewer
Cool.
Street, and no, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
You certainly don't want them getting redirected onto Brewer Street on the other side of 290.
Right.
They'll end up in going through Berlin and route to Route 62 somewhere. So
And you know, the counts we have met the criteria on both segments of Rice. Counts on Winter, I do not believe would, just from my experience. And there's options, you know, an option to consider would be the Whitney to Allen section of Rice. So that those tractor trailers, I guess, you could have that and Winter, because that would cover that four-way intersection and prevents what Chief Liver is talking about. So the exclusion would be Winter Street by need, and then Rice Ave by count, but Rice Ave would be Winter to Allen to kind of simplify the configurations. I don't know.
Yeah, but again, you know, if they get onto Howard Street, they really don't have an option at that point. You know, I mean, if they were to try to turn onto Winter, find the exclusion, if they were to hit like Washburn or something,
Yeah, they'd end up on Washburn probably.
right? Which wouldn't be nice either. Welcome to Northborough. Yeah, this is sort of a tough one, right? Kate, I see your point that, you know, if it's just the landscaping trucks, that's one thing. But, you know,
Let's look at the counts here, don't we?
Yeah, they're at the bottom.
Yeah.
So looks like the majority is just dualies, right? Or
Yeah.
So
That's
what would
about-
2-axle long be? Is that like
like a box truck.
I was going to say is that even a box truck? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's probably more deliveries than anything else.
Yeah, there might be Amazon trucks, the delivery trucks driving around. And the 2-axle 6-tire would be, you know, your small dump truck or your, you know, contractor truck that comes in, a carpenter's truck or something like that.
What about a trash truck?
Trash trucks, yep, that'd be trash trucks. But they're exempt, obviously, but that would be counted in there.
Okay.
So 5 axles and greater, there's nothing.
Yeah. I think this one kind of falls into the same boat as Summer on Summer Street.
Okay. So I'll put it out do we have a motion to not recommend a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion for the aforementioned Rice Ave, Allen Street, between Whitney and Allen Street?
I'll make that motion to forego that recommendation.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Rachel?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Brian?
No.
And I'm going to be a no as well. So 3-2.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, 3-2 in favor of not.
Of not recommending, correct.
Okay.
Okay. Next one is Lincoln Street.
So we've had.
Okay, Chris.
Sorry, do we have the report for that or no?
No, we haven't done any counts yet.
Okay.
So Lincoln Street has come to our attention by a few residents over the past over many years. Some new residents, some longtime residents. Early on, it was more of a simple phone call to Kimball's and say, hey, can you please redirect your trucks again? And they do. Good neighbors. We have other, contractor yards in town that we've reached out to and talked to them about it. Del Greco was one of them. There's, Zecco. They're neighborly. Since GPS has come on board, it's changed a lot. And you see a lot of different trucks running down Lincoln Street. Most recently, people are expressing concern when it comes to the schools. Obviously, we have the elementary school and the middle school on Lincoln Street. I would recommend, if we choose to do traffic counts on Lincoln Street, that we also do them on both segments of Pleasant. If they can't give us 3 spots, then Upper Pleasant and Lincoln. And it's likely that Lower Pleasant will just be rolled into it, because what are you going to do? You're going to go up Lower Pleasant and go nowhere. So it's worth it to get the numbers, and I'm pretty confident that they would justify a truck exclusion. And to this committee's points, to take a little bit of a deeper dive and see if it is a lot of tractor trailers and triaxles. It's pretty clear to tell the difference between a triaxle with his wheels down, tractor trailer, or a landscape trailer. So, but we haven't done the counts yet. I can request them of CMRPC, and would expect to get them in the spring.
Was that culvert on Lincoln Street that failed, right?
Yes.
Was that anything related to the heavy vehicles that we're using, or is it completely different?
No, it was a corrugated, galvanized steel corrugated metal pipe that just completely corroded out along the flow line.
Okay.
I'd also, go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, no, I just had a quick question. Do Lincoln and Pleasant count as 2 traffic studies, or is that part of the one traffic count?
We would do one study. We do 2 sets of counts, but include it in one study.
Okay.
So Summer Street was actually 2. We did 2 sets of counts, one on each side of the 4-way.
I'd be interested too, Chief Liver. Do we have, I know we got, Megan, thank you for sending over the traffic information from the police, but I'd be curious what your recommendation would be, given that there's no traffic light on Lincoln coming out onto 20. And I know of at least 2 accidents in the last year. Granted, they were they were automobile.
Mm-hmm.
But have we seen or had any issues with, tractor trailers or, a vehicle with, towing a trailer coming out of there and causing any accidents that you can recall?
Nothing that's popping up to the forefront.
Yeah, I actually looked at it, and because we've had so many inquiries about it, I actually looked at Lincoln, and there's not a lot of traffic or accidents or anything like that. So if you look at what I sent you, there's not a lot. No.
It's a lot of near misses.
The majority of the crashes, we don't call them accidents anymore because somebody didn't do something right. So they're crashes. Are vehicles turning at Crestwood and Lincoln Street, and vehicles cutting, people being kind and stopping and letting them cut across, and someone's passing them on the right. Really, kindness kills. Follow the rules of the road and just go straight. It's not your job to direct traffic. So if someone has to wait to turn, let them wait. It's usually rear end collisions at Lincoln Street on West Main Street, rather heading east, that want to turn onto Lincoln, turn left onto Lincoln. People will go around them, and people will turn in front of them to turn down Crestwood. That's the most common crash there. It would be nice if they could redesign that whole intersection and make it a signalized intersection, but there's nothing there. I mean, I'm strongly in favor of a truck exclusion myself for Lincoln Street and Pleasant. Just the corner down by Rutland Road on Pleasant Street is not accommodating to large trucks at all. And again, the 2 schools,
that was, I guess, one of my questions is, do do we have, I get heavy foot traffic for kids getting to school too?
During the summer, the recreation department holds programs at Lincoln and Memorial, and the kids walk in between them. So the kids will walk from one program outdoors at Lincoln and then go to an indoor program at Melican and back and forth. So you'll see them in the summertime with the camp counselors kind of corralling the kids and pushing them along the sidewalks.
Yeah, when my son went to Lincoln Street School a while ago, but we lived in the Pine Haven neighborhood and all of the kids walked to school, to and from school together every day. And they had to cross over Lincoln to get there. So kind of dependent on the crossing guard getting everyone's attention to stop. But down at Melican, there's no crossing guard because it's middle school. So
Okay. So, yeah, I think we at least get the traffic study going, unless anyone thinks otherwise. I think it makes sense for, at least from what the information we have now, that, it makes sense to add this. Obviously, we've got to gather the data first.
Yeah.
So, Brian, go ahead.
Sorry, real quick. I noticed there's also, we talked last time about a Jake break restriction. I don't know if there's additional data collection requirements for that street.
No, that's purely under the authority of the select board to implement compression brake or engine brake restrictions, prohibitions. We put that on hold pending this. If we don't have trucks running on it, won't be any Jake brakes. I'd be surprised if they.
I don't know.
I mean, the reason I could see them using them there would be that unexpected curve that comes up on Pleasant. Other than that, it's a wide open line of sight. The driver has to be performing pretty irresponsibly to require his compression brake.
Well, the way they do use them is coming down Lincoln Street from West Main Street by Pine Haven, down the corner, down on the downhill when you get to the school.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
making the corner on the downhill. Do we want to look at potentially doing like I know, Scott, in the last meeting you went over speed bump, speed hump, and what the differences are. Putting something in front of the school there, if there's a lot of crossing, Lincoln over to the Memorial Church.
Oh, like a speed hump?
Yeah, like a speed
or
hump there.
Or a speed table.
Or like a raised crossing or something.
Yeah, raised crossing.
Yeah, we could talk about that. I'd have to look at the roadway classification there. I'm guessing that's probably a collector.
Pleasant or Lincoln.
Lincoln, I'm guessing,
Lincoln.
is a collector.
It's on the site. It says it's a local.
Oh, it's a local road. Okay, all right. And I believe it's 30 miles an hour there. So it would be a viable approach. A couple things to think about when it comes to speed humps and speed tables are some of the potential impacts that occur. Primarily, it's noise. People don't expect them, especially on a somewhat of a wide, straight road like Lincoln Street. They'll be hitting their brakes pretty hard, and whatever they have in their vehicles, usually again we're talking about landscape trailers and contractor trucks. They're gonna shake around a lot. I get that all the time here. Oh, I got this clap of thunder, or this incredible rattling of my house when trucks hit this manhole cover. Well, they don't expect that to be problematic. The same thing happens when you have speed humps that are maybe not expected. If a speed hump was to be put or a raised crosswalk at the school, there would have to be some pretty substantive warnings and, I don't know, flashing lights, something to make sure things just don't go haywire.
Right.
With the noise. I know Westboro removed all theirs. They had a whole bunch between Milk Street and Route 30. Milk Street's kind of like that one. It's 135.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are cutting through that neighborhood behind Dairy Queen and the was it a True Value over there?
Mhm.
A lot of people come through that neighborhood to get out of the rotary, and they put in speed bumps and speed bumps throughout that area, and they're all gone. They took them all away. They were making a racket, and they were problematic when it comes to roadway maintenance. But they were bumps. They weren't humps. They were bumps.
Yep. Go ahead, Rachel.
So, as part of the agenda, we were talking about the potential addition of some officers. Chief Liver, is for the middle school and Lincoln Street, is that, and I know we have a police officer when the high school gets out. Is that something that if we had more officers, we could put a police officer there? And I guess according to Kate, the crossing guard, can that be something, is that only an elementary school thing? Like how does that work if we use
Crossing
people
guards,
instead of speed bumps?
Mr. Chair, crossing guards, yes, that's a conversation to have with the school department.
Okay.
That falls into their purview. As far as additional officers, the reason we're at the high school is we're there for about 10 minutes, and that's to get the 38 some odd buses out, because they have to make pickups, especially at Southborough with the elementary schools, middle schools. So the high school buses have to drop off their students and then circulate around and pick up middle school, and then get back on time to get to the elementary schools. So, and the majority of those buses, they start their day in the afternoon, particularly with at the high school. So that's the reason we have someone there, and it's an as available. And we have one officer that enjoys doing it, and if he's doing nothing, he shows up down there all the time. That's Officer Martin.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I can't commit to this 6 public schools in town, and I don't have that many officers. So if I do it for one school, parents are going to expect it at the other. What's more appropriate would be doing traffic enforcement at release times. But then, you got to be careful of what you ask for, because people will be getting ticketed for blocking Jefferson Road in front of Proctor School, because they make it into one lane. But they got to be careful. So yeah, Maple Street, I'm more in favor of speed enforcement in the school zones when the lights are flashing, because that's usually arrival times and dismissal times. So, but as far as putting an officer out on foot and doing the crossings, I can't commit to that. So we can't just have it one day and then not the rest of the week, or vice versa.
Get that. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Well, shall I say, I can't commit to it for the next 14 days.
For the next.
Yeah. You can have this conversation with Chief Brian Griffin after January 1st.
Any other members?
Just a comment. I think it makes sense to do the counts, and depending on what the outcome of the counts are, to kind of dive into everything else we've talked about and see if more decisions need to be made, like the Jake break, the speed humps, all of those things. If we have the truck exclusion, that might solve a lot of those problems.
If I might, as far as the Jake break, we can't call it a Jake break. That's a trade name. So a trademark name. Compression brakes. Just the fact of putting a sign up, a professional driver sees that, and they realize that the fine is in this town $300, I believe. No, first offense is $100, but the signs themselves, I'm aware of other communities that just put them up, and they just if someone complains about it, you can't write a ticket on it. Obviously, it has to be on a warrant, and the selectmen have to approve it. So, but it has a calming effect on drivers that drive for a living, like to have driving records clean and things like that. So they do work. They do cause them to think twice about using the Jake brake. And there may be some federal legislation or regulations soon that are going to require them in trucks of a certain weight category. So we may not be able to regulate them into the future. So
Well, certainly, I can certainly request, make the request to CMRPC to get out there and request all 3 location counts. And if only 2 are available, Upper Pleasant and Lincoln Street. And when the weather changes, we'll get those counts. I'll be able to present them to the committee. And if they look like they warrant a engineering study, we can go forward with that.
I think that sounds good.
Works for me.
Are the buses included in those counts? Like, is there some way to decipher what the buses are?
There is a
They
bus.
are, but we can remove them.
Okay,
I
great.
believe, but the buses fall into 2-axle long, don't they, Scott?
Yes. Yeah. So we can exclude that from the counts. They're a separate category, separate classifications are.
Okay. I guess unless anyone has any additional comments on that one, we'll move on to the next. Speed bump installation on cut-through roadway Winter Street. This is one of the streets we were just talking about, right?
Yeah, we receive requests often for speed bumps or speed humps on a variety of roads around town. There's really no rhyme or reason on what they're asking for or where. It's generally somebody in the neighborhood who sees vehicles go by too fast and doesn't like the speeding. We get them in Northgate, we get them in Pine Haven. In this case, it's on Winter. We got one on Green. I can't fathom somebody speeding on Green Street anywhere, but apparently somewhere they do. I caution arbitrarily placing these. For example, 433 Blake Ave calls in and says it's a lot of vehicles, and the committee says, okay, put one in there. Then out of nowhere, there's just a speed hump that just landed in out of space for no real purpose or reason, other than one person didn't like the speed of vehicles. People drive faster. These roads were designed for a 1972 Plymouth Fury, and people are driving 2021 Audis that drive themselves. We could do as much as we can to mitigate the speed, but I think if the committee is going to consider speed humps, I think a significant piece of that consideration should be with what the potential safety impact is of speeders. Is there a park there? Is there a school there? Is this a frequent pedestrian corridor? We're talking about a downtown revitalization. Does it make sense in the future to have speed humps on Blake or Pierce or some of those roads that people just want to scoot through to get around? Those are the types of considerations, because what we're talking about here is a policy level decision, I think, because once that box is open, Pandora is going to be coming out.
Yeah. No, I'm actually in agreement with you, Scott. I think, going to what we're going to be talking about later, which is, Chief Liver's recommendation, I think that goes a lot to, not having to do the speed bumps and the speed humps if we can, enforce the rules that are already there a little bit better. Not saying that Chief, that your department doesn't do a good job, but
we do.
Helping out the department to be able to help with the enforcement, I think makes more sense from a town-wide perspective than 1 or 2 speed humps here and there.
And we have 22 pages we got from the chief showing how hard they do work at enforcement.
That's only because one of our report formats does it by month, and I can't make it 12 months. So that's the last time you'll get that, because moving forward, you'll get December's for December, and then January, it's a January meeting. So
there we go.
Okay. Any other comments?
Do we at all want to navigate into that? I know we talked about like a temporary pilot program of like the deployable ones that kind of have notches in them for drainage and a couple other different pieces. Did we want to consider that, or?
I'd like to, just to make a suggestion that, when we started this temporary traffic safety committee, there was a lot of peer outreach. Let's talk to some other communities, see what they've done. We have that list of whatever it was, 50 something comps. Mm-hmm. Maybe reach out to them, because we're all going through the same thing. I live in Grafton. I'm sure Charles does the same thing. people speeding around, cutting through, finding ways to avoid, to cut 22 seconds off their half-an-hour commute. So maybe it's worthwhile to reach out to some peer communities and do you like, do you not like, where do you stand on it?
Yeah, I can provide that spreadsheet, I think, Scott, unless you have it. I think I have a copy of it.
Yep, I have it, and we could, maybe I can distribute it to, the committee and just, hey, let's make some phone calls, or maybe the next meeting we can talk about, what do you want to ask? Who does what town? And then, we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I'd love to do that for trucks too.
Yeah. Well, actually, when
I,
we originally did it, that's what it was for. We were asking about the truck, all the trucks in their town.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it just does not seem like that's an issue that's unique to Northborough either. So if any town has had a better, had some good ideas, I'd love to hear them.
Yep.
All right, I'll take care of that. I'll send that out and maybe start the thought process. So the next meeting we can, you all can deliberate on a mechanism for asking some questions and process going forward.
Sounds good. The stop sign request for Thoreau Road at intersection with Emerson.
Yeah, we discussed this at our last meeting. It does not meet the MUTCD warrant for the stop sign. It would require site distance restrictions, which are limitations which are not there. You would have to meet a certain crash count number. Within the past handful of years, it doesn't meet that either. So we can't put up stop signs arbitrarily that are not in compliance with MUTCD for a variety of reasons. One, it's wrong, but also there may be an issue with it being a viable installation. So there are specific warrants for stop signs. My recommendation is that when requests come in, I can provide, obviously the committee, the request, as well as the criteria and the findings, which were provided last meeting. The idea was, well, maybe the committee can look around Northgate and see if there's other locations that may warrant a stop sign. I know there's some really weird intersections in Northgate, like mind-boggling roads. If one comes up and the committee sees something that looks like it may warrant a stop sign, I'm happy to go out there and look at it and check the site distances and reach out to the new chief and find out what the crash history is and see if it meets the warrant.
That sounds good to me.
The road does not, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at it just looks like dead end with a three-way intersection. So I can't imagine there's much going on.
No.
Yeah, like I said, my only concern is that it doesn't. There's no liability on our side, right, for not having a stop sign, because if there's no stop sign, you're making the driver have to make the decision as to who's supposed to stop, right? Especially if there's no signage stating that this road actually continues to the right, even though it looks like it. You could put a rotary in here. There's enough pavement.
Yeah, I think we're covered though, and not that we're covered, but by the fact that an engineering study said that it's not viable in this location. So that's just based off the data. And on the flip side of things, someone would have to go through, do this and put their engineering stamp on it. So then it becomes their liability versus what the book says. And nobody I know is going to probably stamp that. And I think that's kind of where that would come into play, is like, look, we have this engineering study that says it does not meet the criteria here.
I would be on the record as not supporting it, and the select board would have to give me direct direction in order for it to be installed, and I would be clear that it's not something that I'm doing.
Right.
There's liability on the other side. You do something that isn't warranted and there's an issue. Well, why'd you do it? Well, they wanted it. That doesn't support your stamp.
Kate, were you going to ask a question?
Yeah, no, I think my concern would be deviating from what the findings are. And I think that especially in terms of liability to the town, we're following the guidelines that are set by somebody else. We're fine. But if we decide, and I don't even know if it's possible, we can recommend that there be a stop sign there, even though the guidelines say there shouldn't be, which, just for the record, I don't think we should have one there either, but.
The Board of Selectmen have authority to authorize installation of stop signs. So every stop sign in town that has been put up legally has been approved by the select board.
Okay.
So they have the authority locally, but good select boards rely on their experts and professionals for guidance when it comes to technical subjects like this. So I would hope that they would lean in the favor of professional recommendations.
That's what I'm gonna do too. I agree.
So, and I guess I should have asked this earlier, Scott. So, like, I know for the heavy commercial vehicle exclusions, we voted. Do we need to do that for stop signs as well?
No, only if it warrants installation. So in this case, we do a memorandum to record. The
Okay.
request came in, discussed at a meeting, discussion indicated, site distance not an issue, no history of crashes, isn't warranted in accordance with the manual and uniform traffic control devices, goes in the record, there it is, it's been done. In the event we went out there and said, oh, there's been 3 crashes in the past 2 years, there's a limited site distance to the east, it's my recommendation that a stop sign be authorized. In that case, I would suggest this committee take action so that the select board can see that you support it, your professionals support it, the staff supports it, so it's the right thing to do.
Okay. So I'll ask the members, are there any members that think we should support or recommend this? Okay. I think we're good. Let's see, new items. So we have a request for a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion for Brigham Street.
Yep, resident contacted us, said they're concerned with an increase in truck traffic. They didn't indicate whether it was tractor trailers or just simple trucks, service vehicles and the like, and requested us to consider a truck exclusion. When you look at Brigham Street, the alternate route is about as simple as you can get. It's 20 and 135. So if you're going one way, keep going. You're going the other way, keep going. I don't know if there's a lot of truck traffic on that road without doing counts. I have no idea. I would hate to drive. I mean, I drive a truck and trailer often. I avoid that road. That's a nightmare to go on with a trailer, especially with oncoming traffic.
Right.
Because it's really tight. So it probably warrants a count. I don't believe it elevates itself to the substantial safety concern that Lincoln and Pleasant would have, nor the obvious alternate route being more appropriate, meaning, Lincoln Street is obviously a GPS cut through. I don't know if Brigham Street is. But it would be something to consider for, future counts when they become available, possibly.
Yep. Rachel first and then Brian.
So Scott, it seems like, a lot of these items are a backlog. Do you have, heavy commercial vehicle exclusion requests on other roads that will be at future meetings? I mean, how many have you been asked about when we have to decide on our 2 or 3?
I've presented every one that I've received since the creation of the temporary traffic safety committee.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And we know there's been some that, I still get them about Bartlett Street, and I just send them the stuff we've done before. Here's the reason why it doesn't work. I received them for Chief off of Crawford, by the Weir Trucking.
Oh, West Street. Oh, yeah, Reservoir.
Yeah, Reservoir. I receive them from Reservoir Street every now and then. I give them the same answer. We've gone through the analysis. We've gone through the correspondence. Those I don't bring to you, but new ones that you have them all.
Okay. Thank you.
Brian.
Isn't this gonna run into the same problem as Summer Street? I suppose that we do the study and it's gonna come and it comes back and, oh, look at that, there's enough. There's enough truck traffic where an exclusion is warranted. Well, the trucks are still gonna have that same problem with 20 and South Street, right? That intersection right downtown. If that's the recommended alternate route, right? They're still that building is still in the way.
Right. They can take Summer Street.
Oh,
mean,
there you go.
Recommend Summer Street.
That's way better.
Right.
That's what they do. I hate to state
Yeah,
the
no,
obvious, but
Right. Yep. You're right.
I don't know if GPS sends you that way. I've never used. It may be
On
worthwhile
Summer
to
Street.
before the next. No,
Brigham.
Brigham.
Down Brigham.
Oh yeah.
Next time we're buzzing around town, you're coming into town from Westboro. Throw in your GPS and give the police station your destination and see if it sends you up Brigham. If it doesn't, then it's likely not a cut through road. And it's just a lot of service vehicles because it's a long road that serves a couple neighborhoods.
As
Yeah.
someone,
I'm coming. Sorry. You
I
go,
was just
Brian.
gonna say, as someone who moved here not that long ago, I was coming. I put on the GPS once or twice to go from the Apex Center in Marlboro down 20 going west back towards my house on the western side of town, and it sent me down Summer, and this is the first time I've heard of Brigham. So
Okay. If it's not on the
Yeah,
GPS route, it's probably just service vehicles.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It doesn't look like a very comfortable road. Google Maps, I dropped myself at Sunset Drive. It looks like you driving down there, Scott, in one of the DPW trucks.
Great.
That's exempt.
Yeah.
But I think this brings up a point, Scott, you mentioned about, the fact that we only have like 2 a year to do of these. So maybe we hang on to these requests, right? And keep, even though, we may end up that, the halfway through the year, we've only done one, traffic study. We've got another one that we can do, right? And then we can look through items like Brigham and say, we never really followed up on that one.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. What I'll do is, so we manage here, every meeting has a separate file, and when things don't get done in one, it gets pushed to the next one. It doesn't have to be on old business for discussion. It just keeps on being pushed forward until some things are seasonal, and it just goes from one autumn to the next autumn. So that's manageable for us, Bill.
Okay.
So the 2 per year, that's not to do the counts for the traffic, right? Or is that what we're limited to 2?
That's the counts. Yeah. So what happens is the counts get done. You can get a couple locations in the spring and a couple in the fall. After the counts are done, it's about $10,000 for an engineering study for each one of the locations, which are the studies you saw for Summer and for Rice. And then the decisions are made. The engineering study is not required. If we get the counts, like I indicated, and it shows, there's no tractor trailers, it's all service vehicles, then we don't have to step forward with a engineering study if you don't want to.
Okay.
Any other comments on this one? Okay. Centerline installation on Crawford Street.
So received a request from a resident that I'm digging around for right now. Here it is. Received a request from a resident for a double yellow center line on Crawford Street. Again, this falls under the jurisdiction of the MUTCD, the Manual Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and Mass DOT's amendment to it. In order to have a double yellow center line warranted on a road, it's driven by both width and amount of traffic, and the classification of the road. So, for example, if you have an arterial road, you have to have over 6,000 vehicles a day, an adequate pavement width, double yellow. In this case, it's a local road. You have to have over 3,000 vehicles per day, inadequate width. To put that in perspective, the traffic studies we just did, the counts we did, Rice Ave saw on average under 300 a day. Summer Street saw about 2,300. I don't believe there's any way Crawford Street is going to exceed Summer Street's daily traffic by 20%. I just, or 25%. I don't see it happening. So in accordance with the manuals, it's the double yellow center line is not warranted on Crawford. I know the reason why the resident wants it. It's very narrow, steep slopes, close guardrail. You know, it's tight. It's absolutely tight. Double yellow center is not going to change the cross section of the road, and it's not warranted and by the accordance with the manuals.
What about the width? It probably wouldn't qualify.
Yeah, believe it or not, you only need 18 feet. That's 2 parking spaces. Bill, you're on the plane. Well, 2 parking spaces. You imagine driving by each other, 2 parking spaces at 30 miles an hour?
Kind of what you are doing, but people are just going to drive on the center line.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the end of Davis Street, the other end of it when you're coming in from Westboro.
Yep.
Everybody just drives on the line.
Yep.
So it's not like having a guardrail or a, divider.
Right.
Yep.
It's more helpful when you have geometry concerns. A lot of traffic, dark road, curves that are not lit. You put a double yellow center line, people see the curve coming up as opposed to it creeping up on them in bad weather. But that's Crawford Street doesn't meet the warrant when it comes to traffic loading.
I just avoid that road in the sun because it really is hard to drive on it, but
yeah,
it's that easiest way to get to 290.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, just curious, the entire width of Crawford Street, all the way up to some of like the winter one was between some subset of the road.
This was just a general request on Crawford. My guess is it's in the West Main to that section, West Main before West Street, West Main, maybe Franklin or something like that. That's the tight area. When you get to the other end, it's not that bad.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So I don't think there's a general feeling that, this is not something we'll bring forward as well. Is there anyone that thinks otherwise? Okay. The last of the new items is sort of going to bring us to, I think, the next item as well, the excessive speed on Green Street. And this sort of brings us to, Chief Liver's request. I think the idea of the 2 additional officers, I think, is a wonderful idea. I think it makes sense for a lot of the requests we're seeing in town. Maybe not necessarily, we seem to be getting a lot of heavy commercial vehicle, but a lot of the things I see, in on the Facebook pages and everything else is about, people speeding, people cutting through, and so on. I know it's funny because when my kid found out that I was going to be on the traffic safety, the first thing they asked was, can you do something about the cars going by the school buses when the lights are on?
Yeah.
Right. And so, I was like, wait, where is that happening? And I guess, yeah. So that being said, I guess we will need a vote for this, but I sort of want to get everyone's idea. Is everyone on board with this? Is there anyone that has additional questions for Chief Liver? Go ahead, Brian.
Sorry, are we still talking about the Green Street thing?
Well, I think this goes along with the Green Street, right? So, the question is, can speed be monitored, right? And so adding additional officers to do traffic enforcement would sort of help to enforce the rules, if you were, right?
Hey, Bill, how many of those battery operated vehicle activated speed notification signs do we have? You
7,
know?
2 radar trailers and 7 portable signs.
Okay.
And
Nice.
several of those portable signs have the ability to go on stealth mode, they call it, where it counts the vehicles and gives the speed counts without displaying the speed. So you can put it out there for a week. When we get complaints about speeding cars, we will put one of those signs out there, and people call and say the battery's dead because it's not working. That's because we've got it set to not display the speed, but count it. And that our traffic supervisor has a app on his phone that he can download the counts and the speeds, and we can see what time of day
Oh,
what speeds that cars are going at, and basically at what points during the day. It doesn't count axles or anything like that. It's not a certified traffic count, but it does measure car speeds in both directions. And then so we have an idea of when and where we can place our resources to do traffic enforcement, which is what I would, it was part of my suggestion, is that we're putting on 2 officers specifically for traffic enforcement. Just that would be their focus of their shift.
Right.
And we would have, again, we have a selective traffic enforcement program where we target areas based on complaints, traffic data, and predominantly accidents. With the theory being that if you write more citations than you have accidents, you're going to reduce accidents. So, and that's a long-standing program that a lot of departments use. So that's the impetus for that suggestion. So yes, we can monitor speed versus doing traffic enforcement. I mean, you can consider that the same. We hold a radar gun, you get to see what speeds you're going, but then you're going to have to stop, get out of the car, and do something with it.
Right.
So you can collect data quietly. Yeah. So.
Well, unfortunately, your secret is no longer secret, Chief.
You know, it's
How
what
many
it is.
people you think are listening to the meeting?
Oh, it's going to be on YouTube, though. Anyone can listen to it afterwards. So,
All
Brian,
someone's got to do is go online to the company plastered on it and look up the specs on it, and it'll tell you what they do. So
I can tell you, I always thought that it was never working when when I didn't see a number come up. So,
sometimes you see a little blue light on it.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, Brian, are you okay with combining these two, or did you want to talk about Green Street separately?
Well, only to like clear the speed bump portion of it. Should we
Okay.
get that out of the way?
Yeah, the same
Right.
yeah, but approach applies, an arbitrary placement. This is a policy decision, and maybe in the meantime, when these reports come in to about speeding, I can get them over to PD, and PD can determine if it's a repeat issue. The stealth machine comes out.
I mean, I would have just said like just the memorandum of doom or whatever it was called from before.
Mhm.
Just to say it doesn't meet the requirements, just the memorandum to record that we responded to it.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yep.
I will say, one of the things I did notice is in Sudbury, almost every side street coming off of Route 27, once you get between routes, what is it? Before Route 20, and then up towards the center of town, it seems like every side street they have speed bumps on every one of those side streets coming off of there.
I can reach out to my peer over there. Find out when, why, how, if they're working. Yep.
Yeah, well, I know it works for my wife because it slows her down definitely, and they've got them like almost every mile, like one a mile,
Okay.
going along those side streets because exactly what you said, Scott. There, the GPS sends people that way,
Yep. Once, and they hit 10 speed bumps. They never
right?
go that way
And
again.
my wife never goes those streets again.
Yep.
So. So I guess back to the two officers. Does anyone have any additional comments, or are we ready to vote? Do we think on this?
I would be interested to hear what our peer communities are doing about this. Just like with the trucks, I'm sure we're not the only community where everybody drives, where people are complaining on the Facebook page that everybody's driving too fast next to them.
Right.
Well, a lot
Well,
of them do have dedicated traffic safety officers.
That might be but Brian, that's a great idea. When we put together the sort of, I don't want to say survey, but handful of questions for our peer communities, do you have dedicated traffic safety PD?
Yeah. I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure that we're not overlooking something simple and additional that we can do to slow traffic.
You can get the legislature to approve radar cameras and automatic citations, and that'll actually make a difference.
Well, it's funny because one of the things that I saw was I don't know if you saw, but the video that came out of Peabody, they put videos on school buses and had them drive around for a month and captured every license plate of every person that drove by a school bus with a red light on. Unfortunately, they can't do anything about it other than put them up on YouTube but the ability to be able to send that person a ticket.
If you can verify they were the driver, if the photo shows the driver, you can. That's like, it's a little bit more of a hurdle to pass, but it's not impossible. At least it can generate a phone call to the operator,
or to the owner of the vehicle.
Yep.
As you say, if it's on YouTube, everybody watches it.
Yep.
Certainly something to ask when we reach out to our peer communities. Do you have dedicated traffic enforcement officers? And it'll probably bolster the weight of the decisions here in this committee when it gets considered by the select board, when they see that 75% of their peers do.
Right. Although I would like to at least vote on sending the memo. I think it's still good for this town, even if other towns are or aren't doing it. I think it makes sense here for what we're trying to do.
Yep. I would just only say that our budgets are due.
Yeah. Well, that's the other reason why I wanted to make the vote now, right? So that we can get that in front of the select board.
Yes.
Brian's budget is due pretty soon, Bill.
What's that?
Brian's budget is due pretty soon.
January 1st. It's still,
Oh no, it's actually due this month, but we're working on it together because it's his first one and he's going to inherit it. So, yeah.
So, do I have a motion to approve creating a memo to the select board in recommendation of Chief Lavers to traffic enforcement officers?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Rachel?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Brian?
No.
And I'm an aye.
Well, appreciate the support.
Thank you, Chief. It's a great idea. Rachel?
Just a question. So what's the timing? Because this has to be voted on at town meeting, correct? So we submit budgets and then it goes to the select board and then it goes to town meeting?
The budget doesn't go to the select board.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Budget goes to the committee's appropriations, and then the warrant goes to the select board to approve.
Okay.
So there is time. The warrant, I don't believe, gets approved until March.
Yeah, the middle of March, I think.
Yep. So we'll get the memo. Chief and I will get the memo prepared relatively quickly. We'll get it to the town administrator's office, and he'll get it in front of the board, and we'll go through the process.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the traffic safety webpage.
I believe we got the prior comments addressed.
Yep.
Kind of married the traffic safety committee page with the traffic safety page, linked them back and forth, got the mission statements on there. So I think often the committee pages direct residents to staff pages or research pages or data pages and things. And that's the model we took with this committee.
Yep. No, I think it looks good. I don't know if anyone else has had a chance to take a look at it. It is in the email that came from Megan,
Yeah.
both links. I'm almost wondering if we need to add like that third paragraph about but you've got all the data here, right? So that's sort of the point. Because you can look up all the prior requests.
Yep.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Were you able to have people who submit get a copy of their submission so they have a record of what they submitted? You know,
Yes.
if that was, oh, good.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
beta tested that. I was a resident Gmail accounter and was able to get it back.
Oh, that's great.
And then
Thank
PD
you.
also has an email process, and that worked there as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Is there any other ideas or things we think we need to add? It's interesting when we Scott mentioned the spreadsheet that we went through. We went through and looked at other websites of other towns. Some of them got real fancy, real fast. I don't think that's something we want to do, but take a look at some of their web pages as well. I think we put all the links in there, and see if there are any ideas that we may get from how they set up their pages. Some of them have been around for a couple of years. Some of them are fairly new.
You'll see a lot of the communities you look at will have a very similar looking web page with Civic Plus as the host. We're on an older platform of Civic Plus, which is going to be migrated to a newer platform in the coming year or so. That gives us a lot more functionality, both for accessibility purposes as well as links and easy. What do they call those little widget things? I guess that's something, right? Yeah. So anyway, some tech guys know what I'm talking about. So anyway, we're going to be getting improvements soon.
Okay. At this point, we would open it up for public comment, but when I look in the participants, I don't see anyone in the public on our attendees list, just panelists. So, but again, going forward, if anyone is watching this on YouTube and you would like to make comments, this is the point in the meeting where we would normally accept those. So moving on from that, our next meeting is going to be, let me see if I can pull up my calendar here.
It said January 9th on the invite.
Is it January 9th? Okay.
Yep.
Yep. So January 9th at 6:30, does that work for everyone?
Nope.
Yes. What about you, Bill?
You're still welcome to join us as a, public participant, but
I'll be wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Maybe.
well, hopefully you enjoy your retirement. It's well deserved, well earned.
It's been a pleasure, and I'm really happy to see that this committee came to fruition.
Yep. Unfortunately, we only got to work with you for a few months, but
Yep.
you were.
Chief Griffin will be a pleasure to work with. So.
Yes, he will. He is.
It has a nice ring to it. I like saying it because it means it's been a long time.
Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, Rachel,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Have a happy
Thank you.
holiday, and
Thank
see
you.
everyone in the
You
new year.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Best of
Bye.
luck, Chief, in your retirement.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.